Welcome back to the weekly news roundup. And today we want to focus a little bit on an ed tech company that is being sued in the state of California. And the allegations are such that they're using the data to profit or to make other products and things like that. And there's been a little bit of a spat. This was actually filed in December. There was just this week, there was a motion to dismiss and a counter motion saying, no, that's dumb. And let's go ahead and have a look at a few of the points here. So California parents sue iReady maker over student data collection. So this is a private equity firm running a company called Curriculum Associates. They have a number of things, including this iReady tests. So the program violates privacy laws, which has led to a debate over whether iReady is actually beneficial to students. The lawsuit alleges Curriculum Associates collects student data and shares it with third parties for commercial purposes without adequate consent from parents and students. The company boasts more than $750 million in annual revenue, primarily from contracts with school districts across the country. And collecting data, including students' race and gender, grade level, responses to iReady assessment questions, time spent answering its questions, and more. The company also collects students' IP address, school name, disability status, and eligibility for school lunches, because, that's critical information to know when you're giving a test. Excuse me, child, before I give you this test, I need to know, or do you qualify for school-free lunches? All right. So parents do not know this is happening. We trust that our kids are protected, and that includes their data, one of the parents says. And us checking off a box giving permission for them to use the internet at school should not entail this level of data farming on them. Curriculum Associates details these practices in a company policy, but denies allegations that they constitute unnecessary data collection without consent. Remember, without consent, this is that checkbox that you agree to the terms of service every time you download an app, and you probably have never read it. Yeah, they are counting you checking that as providing full consent to doing whatever. And the problem that the parents have here is that, like most of this digital assets, the school is setting the student's account up. And the parent is just, did you agree to it or not? And of course, if you say, no, I do not agree to the internet for my children, then you're going to be run through all sorts of weird things, like you're a barbarian abusing your child, And so Curriculum Associates discloses information to the school district and district customers about the data collection and obtains consent through them. And that's one of the hinge pins of the lawsuit, that the Curriculum Associates is receiving consent from the school, not from the parent. And while in theory this iReady test should be optional, there are some districts in Los Angeles area where these students originate from, which are still mandating it. And Curriculum Associates is kind of recommending the school mandates it because, it's so much better for data collection. You can assess your students so much better if we collect all their data. So the parent groups call on the districts to examine the policies. School boards, Schools Beyond Screens is a nonprofit set up to raise concerns about edtech companies. So if you have children in school and you are concerned about it, you might reach out to Schools Beyond Screens to see if there's anything you can do in coordination with them. So it's actually, so let's see. We're asking to take a little bit more of a critical look at technology, examine, has it actually helped learning? Has it harmed learning? And just determining what evidence is it actually showing. Those are the things they want to know. So EdTech uses class time in district funds. So Julie Van Winkle, Vice President of the American Federation of Teachers branch of the union, says that she noticed significant uptick in private contacts since LA Unified School District Superintendent Alberto Carvalho, I think I got that right, took office in 2022. Now, I actually saw these articles a while ago, but they were a little bit too political, so I didn't actually cover them. But this guy here, is it Carvalho, I think it is. Carvalho was placed on leave in February after the FBI raided his home and the LAUSD's headquarters. The search reportedly tied to investigation of edtech company All Here, which was paid $3 million to develop a chatbot for the district in 2024. Carvalho was reportedly a major proponent of the company and its product. And Guardian is being too generous. The creator of All Here was a close personal friend of Calvero. Okay. So literally this guy takes over the superintendent reins and says, hey, let's take this $3 million and pay my best friend. I'm sorry. I'm trying not to get super loud like that. My apologies. I hear the criticisms when people say I'm a little too loud sometimes. And I'm trying to temper that down. I know some of you love it, but I don't know. I agree. And I wouldn't want to listen to it if it's going quiet and then really loud. So my apologies. But anyway, what our students need particularly, and all students really need, is that human face-to-face interaction. And I would agree with that. So EdTech debate hits home for LAUSD. So LAUSD is currently overhauling its tech policies. School board approved a measure to limit student screen time for the next school year back in April. So that's actually pretty good. So I want to have a look at this curriculum associates here. And this is actually their data, their data privacy law. So this is their general one. Now, they also have a separate policy for several of the different products as well. Of course, they say up here, we do not sell any information that identifies you personally, like your name or your phone number. Notice the qualifiers. We do not sell any information that identifies you personally, like your name or your phone number, which means, yes, we're selling a bunch of data about you. It just doesn't include your name or your phone number. Now, we can infer that from everything else we have, of course. It's easy to do, especially in the world of AI. But under CPRA and other state laws, that's the California one, you have the right to opt out of the sale or sharing your personal information to third parties, and some of those disclosures to our advertising partners may be considered sales under those laws, even though we do not obtain any monetary or other compensation for such engagement. So we don't sell your information, but what we do constitutes a sale under the California Privacy Rights Act. You just can't make this stuff up. You guys ever read these privacy policies? These are fun. You know? I mean, all right. Our partners may use non-cookie technologies that may not be impacted by browser settings that block cookies. That white section I didn't highlight was, hey, you can block some of this stuff by blocking cookies in your web browser. I mean, it may not work, but so they also have partners that use non-cookie technologies that may not be impacted by browser settings that block cookies, or your browser may not permit you to block such technologies. To opt out from receiving interest-based advertising, including ads served through non-cookie technologies, please visit the NAA website opt-out page. So that actually goes over to this page over here, and then there's another one over here. This is a big data marketing firm that if you give them your data, they pinky promise and spit shake not to market to you directly anymore. So there you go. And they have some things to mention. How do you exercise, how do you exercise your rights? I shouldn't have to exercise my rights. I should just have them. Okay. This is ridiculous. Okay, here's browser privacy settings. Of course, these are the same people, trying to lobby against using Tor, because I don't want you following me around the internet like a crazy stalker, Advertising privacy settings on mobile, of course, adjusting your settings to that. Advertising privacy settings on TVs and streaming devices. There you go. And ad choices external. Visit the DDA's website to learn about the tools to request opt-outs of internet-based advertising and with participating companies. Your ad choices gives you control. Ad choices. Where did I see that? Oh, that's owned by Google. Yeah. So give them your information. They pinky promise and spit shake not to not to share your data. With respect to personal information collected by Curriculum Associates in connection with a form you complete that was related to a region or product-specific marketing campaigns, those are going through ReadyBot. And for this one, you can subsequently opt out of CA's future use and collection of personal information by sending an email to this company here. They've sent us to 4 different places to stop buying and selling and trading our data. Do you feel comfortable with this being the company administering tests to your children? Here's your right to delete. There are a number of exceptions. Okay, you have the right at any time to request we delete your personal information. There are a number of exceptions to this right. However, if one of those exceptions that is applicable, we will not delete your data. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Let's see. As described in our privacy policy, as described in our anti-privacy policy, we engage in certain trusted third parties to perform functions and provide services. The ones that the government tells us constantly leak our data. These companies do direct to marketing campaigns. How do you do a direct marketing campaign without somebody's information? You can't. By mere definition, it's direct. It goes directly to the person you're sending it to. We use Nextdoor for certain marketing analytic purposes. Their privacy obligations and practices are described in more detail here. I think that's supposed to be a link because I didn't see anything else about Nextdoor anywhere else in this policy. Of course, there's nothing there. We may share your personally identifiable information with these third parties, but only to the extent necessary to perform the functions. So are you sharing our data or are you not? I'm a little confused. Confuzzlication has hit my neurons. All right, so residents of California, Colorado, Connecticut, Utah, Virginia may exercise their rights under applicable state laws by emailing us, ciinc.com, or calling the following toll-free number, 800-225-0248. Depending on the nature, we may have to verify your identity prior to responding. If we are not able to respond to any more than one right to know request from a consumer in a 12-month period of time. So you can reach out to them once and that's it. Of course, in the lawsuit, as alleged, reading through the lawsuit, the parents actually alleged that they contacted them utilizing this and never heard anything at all. And then everyone just kept on passing the buck. I pulled the lawsuit. I was not actually able to highlight anything in here. So I'm hoping I can find a few things. We're obviously not going to look through whole 115 pages. I remember there being something around here at point 15 I liked. Any purported consent was not provided by a person with authority to do so. Curriculum Associates students users are minors, and Curriculum Associates does not claim it contains consent from parents or even from students themselves. The extent Curriculum Associates purports to obtain consent, it relies on the consent of the school personnel alone, but school personnel do not have the authority to consent to data harvesting of minor students by a private company. Only parents do. Indeed, the interests of the school administrators may not be aligned with those of the students, disqualifying them from serving as students' agents in this context. That is why the law highly restricts what kinds of information that even a school may collect from students and how school personnel may use such information, let alone what a private vendor may do. They allege that Curriculum Associates have been collecting and using student information for years without effective consent, does not confer legality on its business practices, no adverse possession of the law, violations are violations, regardless of whether the practices have been generally accepted within an industry or conferred some benefit. So they mention here privacy is a fundamental right. I don't think our country lives by that idea. It should, but I don't think it does. And so let's see. I want to get into a lot of these sound on the surface like, yeah, if true, that's crazy. So maybe they're asking for a case so they can go to discovery. But it actually does turn out. They did a whole section here on that iReady diagnostics reports. So the collection of the reports generally administered 3 times per school year used to measure students' proficiency in reading and mathematics, and a series of reports generated by Curriculum Associates based on students' assessment results, purporting to provide conclusions. Now, when they asked for data and finally got data, one of the parents just got a bunch of raw data. They never got this report that Curriculum Associates says they generate. So obviously, they did not provide the information correctly. So the standards mastery and standards master reports are in there. The personalization is in there. I wanted to skip down. These are just examples of the questions. That's, whatever, just there for completion probably. I wanted to get down to, they have a section down here about what data is actually collected. But then what was interesting to me here, all right, so here is Curriculum Associates creates and collects a sweeping array of data from students who use its products, including plaintiffs. Now, remember, they said we're just assessing the students. By the way, the best way to assess a student is blindly. You shouldn't know their race. You shouldn't know their gender. You shouldn't know their age. You should just have a test, trust that the person who gave them the test considered it an appropriate test for that particular student. And the best thing, that's why as a former college professor, it's always best. I used to grade the papers kind of backwards that I couldn't see who the names were. You always have trouble students. You always have amazing students. You don't want the student's name at the top of the paper to bias your grading. And so I'd usually do them backwards. So I never saw the first page where their name was on it until I was effectively done grading each paper. It did a really good job for, making sure that you weren't accidentally biased. Not that I would be biased. I mean, I taught chemistry. It's pretty black and white, You're either going to blow something up AI style or you're not. Okay. And so what they're saying here, though, is that Curriculum Associates creates and collects a sweeping array of data from students who use its products, including plaintiffs. As evidenced by Curriculum Associates' terms of service, documents provided by Curriculum Associates, and the MC1 and MC2 are the children of the one plaintiffs. Documents produced by the plaintiffs had the following information: their first name, last name, date of birth, gender, state identification, username. Is the student Hispanic or Latino? What's the student's race? And what's the student's identification number? All irrelevant information. They had the plaintiff's enrollment data, the student's grade level, the academic year, the school enrollment, the student's class enrollment, the name of the student's teacher, the state identification number of the student's school, whether the student is an English language learner, whether the student is in special education. These are things that violate I forget which one, the Child Education Acts. Whether the student is in special education, the student's English language classification, and the language which the student's assessment lesson was conducted. The plaintiff's assessment process and behavioral data, the student's activity ID, plaintiff's response to questions, whether the student answered the questions, start and completion of these, the time spent on each question. All of those, this last list, I can understand because you're administering a test. But then they have psychometric and outcome data. Obviously, this is stuff that they would be able to infer based on the data collected for the test. That first two lists, completely unnecessary. This last list, yes, I can understand that one. I don't have a particular problem. They also, though, knew a unique device identifier. This is effectively personally identifiable information. The device type, IP address, browser type, browser settings, and operating system information. You know what? That is irrelevant information for a test. In addition to data described here, Curriculum Associates also obtains the following from every student using iReady at one or both plaintiff school districts: student's email address, student's ethnicity, foster youth stats. Yeah, the testing company owned by private equity really needs to know if your child is a foster student, a foster child. They really need that. Whether the student is disabled, identification number of student's school district, name of school the student attends, state at which a student school is located, relevant student usage and achievement, data which can be probed to get an item level. Anytime we talk about probing in students, this is just wrong. Detailed information regarding student skill and mastery level, any activity data may be assessed, and blah, blah. Messages sent, resources created, coursework, including external and resource links utilized. Yeah. And so they say here this far exceeds educational records, and I agree with them on that. Now, the last thing I did want to mention, this gets into the part we're not going to cover here. I just mentioned it. And, the plaintiffs tried to get the information pursuant to the privacy policy and were stonewalled into it. But what's interesting to me is they actually, the legal team prior to filling this out actually had a forensic analysis of everything going on. I want to get down to that part down there if I can find it. This is the allegations of what they're doing with all of the data. This is the section on shares data for commercial purposes. The Curriculum Associates discloses student personal information to a host of third parties, including schools, educators, also private companies for commercial purposes, such as affiliates and investors, because we all need our affiliates and investors knowing information about our children, right? So they disclose personal information to third parties. And you remember, we read that in their privacy policy. Yes, we give this information to your third parties. Those third parties, they pinky promise and spit shake not to abuse that data. Do I still have that up? It might have been under a different one. But yeah, they actually mention in here that they actually mentioned in their terms of service, one of their privacy policies, they actually said, yes, we give this personally identifiable information to third parties under an exclusive agreement that they will not share that data. It's like a red light. It doesn't actually stop the car from going through the intersection. You have to trust the moron driving, okay? And when you're talking about third parties, the third parties are morons that can't be trusted. The federal government has told us that. And I believe them because nearly every one of these data breaches that I'm constantly seeing is all done by third parties. It's like, we're looking for a sieve to put all this data into, you know? Have we checked in Amazon S3 calendar? So what the sub-processors, hosting companies, information technology, customer support, that same like customer support that was checking and verifying your IDs with Discord, that customer support. Very, very, very elegant at handling your personally identifiable information. Data security companies, consumer research services. That's right. Yes. We are absolutely, it is imperative that we collect your personal information of your student and we hand it on to consumer research services. Yeah. These are all things mentioned in their privacy policy. Educational research services. I do not consent to my child's data being used for your research. Go get your own data for research, And frankly, I know what these teachers do. I don't really want them. Now, this is actually the part to me that said, okay, they're actually up to something not right here. Forensic analysis revealed CA shares plaintiff's data with third parties in real time. And the reality is, Curriculum Associates may not even realize they share data with these parties in real time. Just like the FTC, whatever, cracked down on medical companies and financial companies that had Facebook tracking pixels in there. Why? Because the third-party subcontractors that they hired out to build these platforms you got to have a Facebook tracking pixel in there. And so the people running these things, the CEOs, guys making decisions, they're like, well, I don't know what that is, but okay, if you need it. And they put it in, and before you know it, all the information on this highly sensitive medical or financial, or in this case, education data is going right on back in real time to the company, and there's no earthly reason that actually needs to happen because the people buying the websites is incompetent. The people building the website, they're just like, well, everyone needs this, so let's go ahead and include it because they don't know what the laws are. And then the CEO's just like, well, just make it happen. And so nobody has any care what's going on because this is a private equity firm. They have one thing in mind: making money. And the more data they collect, the more money they got. And that's how it happens. So they did forensic analysis to find that, yes, indeed, they were actually sharing information with third parties. Whether or not the company agreed with that or not, believe that was happening. It's like we're not sharing any information. We're just using Google Analytics. Do you know what information Google Analytics can collect on you? Oh, yeah. And by the way, you're not supposed to put it with the inside of things where children are. It's like, what are you doing with Google Analytics? Oh boy. We've ranted about this company for long enough. Just to suffice it to say, guys, we need to take a very strong stance against edtech. Let's not forget, Steve Jobs did not allow his kids to go to school where they would use computers. Bill Gates did not let his kids go to school to where they could use computers. Zuckerberg said he would not let his kids on Facebook. Sam Altman said he would not let his kids use ChatGPT. These are important things to keep in mind. We also have a lot of research that says that schools that back off of technology, keep phones out of the classrooms, and minimize the technology being used in schools tend to have much, much better, more positive educational outcomes. Technology does not help us learn. Technology helps us get tasks accomplished faster. And take it from a chemist. When I was in college, the only class I ever had problems with was physical chemistry. That is insane. And in order to get past it, I would take Saturday. I would block off Saturday. I'm in do not disturb mode. I would shut off the lights. I had one little desk lamp, and I sat there and I worked the problems. The only way you learn is by working the problems. Later on, as a chemistry professor, I was a young chemistry professor. I'm modern and embracing technologies because young people are dumb. And, these online chemistry things like Mastering Chemistry was one of the first, comes out from Pearson. And so we implemented Mastering Chemistry. I'm like, this looks great, But the problem I quickly discovered with Mastering Chemistry is that it is always about getting the right answer. not about the process to derive the answer. And in chemistry and other difficult subject matters, it is the process to derive the answer which is important, not the answer itself. And that is ultimately the challenge. When you can get your students to sit down and organize their problem sets, you can get them to organize their thoughts. You can get them to separate from the technology, pass the information from their brain through their arm into their hand and onto paper. Information is retained infinitely better. The computer does not help you learn. It helps you to accomplish a task. And those are two completely different things that we need to bear in mind. Let me know your thoughts about all of that. What's your stance on technology in education? What are your experiences? Let me know in the comments down below.